I want to start by taking us back to the year 1988. In 1988, I looked like this. In 1988, I was in second grade growing up in Littleton, Colorado. In 1988, in the suburbs of Denver, I could count on one hand the number of black and brown kids in my school, and I'd still have fingers left to pick my second grade nose with. I don't begrudge my childhood at all, and it was isolating. But in 1988, I was also growing up in strange new worlds. I was seeking out new life and new civilizations, and I was boldly going where no one has gone before. Because in 1988, there was this. And thank God, or thank Gene Roddenberry for Star Trek. I needed this place. I needed this place to escape all the burdens and limitations of Littleton, Colorado. Race, class. This was a place where I didn't have to pretend to be a Boy Scout to cover up the fact that I was really a chubby, closeted, gay black boy trying desperately to fit in. Outer space was a place where black folks were engineers, where they spoke Klingon, where they were sought out for their advice. They were valued, they were seen, and they had power. Whoopi Goldberg, like myself, was also a Trekkie. As she tells it, she was 9 years old in 1966 when she first saw Nichelle Nichols play Lieutenant Uhura aboard the USS Enterprise. "Come quick," she shouted. "There's a black lady on TV, and this time she ain't no maid." As she tells it, it was right then and there that she knew she could be anything she wanted to be. And when she got famous, she begged to be on Star Trek: The Next Generation. Star Trek helped me see that representation matters, and I've come to believe deeply that reflective representation, seeing yourself, your experience, your people's experience in the places and positions that matter most in this world, is critical to meaningful civic engagement. Reflective representation inspires the next generation. It gives kids a sense of the possible, a path to follow, a more inclusive future to envision. It's turning on the TV during the Olympics and seeing Simone Manuel take the gold when black folks aren't supposed to swim. Or opening up the local paper and seeing a local profile of our highest ranking Latina judge, Darlene Ortega. Reflective representation also helps erase the unconscious biases that we all have and that fuel our everyday interactions as neighbors and as coworkers. We see black men as deadbeat dads not because the data suggests it. In fact, black dads are actually more involved with their kids on a daily basis than white dads. But we see them as deadbeats because that's how we're represented. This effect is so powerful that dispelling it is central to the MTV campaign in their racial and gender bias cleanses. But the greatest opportunity for reflective representation comes when we apply it to our very civic fabric, our democracy. We are strongest when our elected leadership reflects the full range of talent and lived experience that I know the Northwest has to offer. But for too long in Portland, we have told ourselves a lie, a belief that we just trot out anytime it's convenient. Portland is just so white. It's not true. But we tell ourselves this over and over, perhaps because we're not living in the same neighborhoods, or attending the same schools, or stepping out of our social circles long enough to see who Portland really is. Some of us are watching Portlandia, while the rest of us know who Portland really is. I say that because this is what the average second grade classroom looks like today in Portland. And this data is a little bit old, so actually we can say for certain that half the kids in our schools today are not white. And even when you add in all of us adults, 1 out of 3 Portlanders is a person of color. 1 out of 3. And so when I hear people say Portland's so white, what I also hear is, I don't see a third of y'all, Or a third of y'all don't matter. Or maybe a third of y'all have no power. And I guess when you put it like that, it's sort of true. I say that because most of Oregon's elected officials are white, and by most, I mean 93%. And we don't have data on the school boards and city councils, but I'm pretty sure if we did, that number is even more out of whack. We do know that in Portland, there have been just 2 people of color on our city council, ever. This is not reflective representation. And I want to pause to make a brief point. When I talk about a more reflective government, I'm talking about a more reflective experience among our lawmakers that being a person of color, frankly, often means in this country. Put simply, it's not about race, it's about the experience of race. If we are to improve our unacceptable high school graduation rates, or fix our very broken criminal justice system, or make a more open and accountable government, we have to value the lived experience of those that seek to represent us as much as we value their political experience. I look most recently to Baltimore, where despite the outcome, Marilyn Mosby acted swiftly against police violence. Swiftly, where so few district attorneys have. This is in a country where 95% of elected district attorneys are white. 85% of them run unopposed, and just 1% are women of color. 1%. See, Marilyn Mosby knows what it's like to both need the police and fear the police. And we need more elected officials that understand that. We need more elected officials that know what poverty feels like, what the soft bigotry of low expectations in the classroom feels like, what making your kids live among mold and asbestos and lead for fear of eviction feels like. Listen, I know we can do this. I know we can meet this vision of a more reflective democracy. This vision is what inspired a group of us to start an organization we call Color Pack, which is recruiting and training and supporting candidates of color to win in elected office throughout Oregon. But it's going to take more than Color Pack to meet this vision of a reflective democracy. It's going to take all of us. And what can we do? Well, we can give our time and our money to candidates of color who are running not just to represent their own communities, but to represent all of us. We can gather our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, whatever, have a conversation through the Oregon Humanities Conversation Project. White folks can join amazing organizations like Standing Up for Racial Justice. But whatever it is, we can and we must speak up when we don't see the rainbow of people that is Portland reflected in our workplaces, on our city council, on our school boards. And we can and we must speak out whenever any racist act happens in this city. And we can and must do all of this beyond the virtual walls of Facebook and the impermanency of Snapchat. We can and we must do this because at our core, we do believe that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness belong not just to some of us, but to all of us. That it is everyone's dream and one we can achieve together to live long and prosper. Thank you.